welcome to the channel. Today's session will focus on GCSE Buddhism, aligning with AQA's Advanced Information for June 2022. Before we get started with the main objectives and outcomes, here are a quick few facts about GCSE Buddhism which are worth taking note of. Buddhism is dated to be around 2,500 years old. This makes Buddhism one of the oldest surviving religions within the world today. Furthermore, Buddhism is among Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism to be born within India, as the religion originated from Nepal. Finally, Buddhism was estimated to have around 507 million followers in 2020. This means that Buddhism was the fourth largest religion in the world. This has also carried over to 2021, and we are also waiting 2022 statistics. Therefore, I believe it is safe to say that Buddhism is still the fourth largest religion within the world today. A brief summary of those facts, which you might want to take a note of. An important point to make is that references of my research will be shown clearly on the screen, and the 10 most effective for revision will be shown at the end of the video. This is for students who would like to revise further. Now we will get into the main video explaining the learning outcomes which have been built by the AQA specification. So, what to expect from this video? The video will be broken up into 3 segments which will serve as learning outcome checklists. Therefore, you will be able to see what topics you have covered, as well as summarise key points at the end of each segment. As this video seeks to aid AQA learners, this video will cover the beliefs and teachings within Buddhism in alignment with the AQA specification. This has been constructed through these learning objectives. The first learning objective is the most important one within this project, as I will outline the Buddha's life with a short story, and key information will be highlighted with a gold coin, so feel free to make notes as we go. This section will cover the birth and life of luxury of the Buddha, the 4 sights the Buddha witnessed, and an explanation to the Buddha's enlightenment. Additionally, each outcome will end with a task building towards answering a 12-mark question in the final outcome. This section will focus on answering a 2-mark GCSE question from a real-life paper. Learning Outcome 2 will critically analyse the life of Buddha, using the 4 Noble Truths which was his first teaching. This will include the different types of suffering known as dukkha, the causes of suffering known as samdaya, elaborating on the 3 poisons and how to end craving. This project will also provide a real-life AQA GCSE example of a 4-mark question. I will then elaborate on how to answer a 5-mark question by referring to scripture within my answer, as this will tie together nicely between the 4 and 5-mark questions. The final learning outcome will continue on from learning outcome 2, as the 4 Noble Truths will also entail the Eightfold Path. Therefore, we will provide an explanation to the Eightfold Path and outline liberation through nirvana within this step. Finally, this section will break down how to answer a 12-mark GCSE question, which you can then complete at the end of this video. Thank you, and let's get into the main video. Buddha was born around 563 BC at Lumbini, Nepal, India. At birth he was named Siddhartha Gautama and was expected to succeed his father as a great ruler of a kingdom. Siddhartha's father was named King Shodana, and his mother was named Queen Maya. The king and queen allowed a seer to look into their son's future, beginning the 2 great prophecies of Buddha's life. Siddhartha was either to become a great king like his father, or a spiritual enlightener for the entire world. Here is a quick introduction to our task. From the short story so far, can you answer these 2 questions? What was Buddha's name at birth? And what was the 2 prophecies about Buddha's life? This information will contribute to answering the following AQA mock question from Religious Studies, Paper A in 2019. Give 2 reasons why Siddhartha Gautama gave up on his life of luxury. We will now continue the short story, which will provide an understanding on the answers which I will show you at the end of part 1. However, the prophecy would not bode well with Siddhartha's father, as he needed a successor. Therefore, Siddhartha was not allowed to see any of the outside world. The prince was to be kept away from anything to do with decay, including elderly people, those who were sick, and even flowers that had petals falling off. As the prince would grow, the king needed to ensure that his son would live stably within the life of luxury he provided within the palace. The prince would be married at 16 years old and would have his first son around 10 years later. At this point, the prince was curious about the kingdom which he would one day rule, and asked his father if he could see what's behind the confines of the castle walls. And with his father's trust and someone to accompany him, the young Siddhartha left the castle for the first time at approximately around 29 years old. Upon leaving the castle for the first time, Prince Siddhartha witnessed 4 sights which would change his life forever. The stories about how Siddhartha witnessed these sights can be explained in various different ways, ranging from one day or spread out over separate days. However, for the purpose of this video, I will explain Siddhartha witnessing these sights all within the same day. Therefore, Siddhartha would stumble across an old man, an ill man, and a dead man. And finally, Siddhartha would witness a holy man. This is a significant part of Siddhartha's life because for the first time within his life, he felt completely disconnected from reality. These sights transformed Siddhartha's mind as he questioned the servant that his father had sent with him. This led to the prince giving up his life of luxury in search of the truth. Siddhartha would eventually come across the holy man that he had witnessed on his journeys outside of the palace. The holy man was known as an ascetic, and this would begin Siddhartha's life living with the 5 ascetics. This is where Siddhartha would begin a 6-year fast, eating nothing but seeds. However, Siddhartha did not find this beneficial and would break his fast after a girl gave him a bowl of milk. At this point, Siddhartha left the camp of the ascetics. Eventually, sitting down under a tree, this is where Siddhartha would begin his enlightenment. As Siddhartha meditated, he would become realised as the Buddha, or the awakened one, through the realisation of the middle way. Siddhartha discovered that enlightenment lay between the pleasures that he once had as a prince and what he would call self-mortification, which was denying oneself of the desires and pleasures that he did fasting as an ascetic. To conclude this part, we have now outlined the Buddha's life. From his 2 birth prophecies, which was that he'd either become a great king or a spiritual enlightener for the entire world, the 4 sights he witnessed which spurred his transformation to becoming a spiritual enlightener, which was the old man, the sick man, the dead man, and the holy man. And finally, Buddha's enlightenment, which come through the middle way, realising that suffering stemmed from either having too much pleasure or denying oneself of pleasure to an extreme. Therefore, there needed to be a middle way to relieving suffering. Finally, I will show you how to answer the 2-mark question which aligns with the AQA specification at the beginning of this video. We actually have 3 reasons why Siddhartha would give up his life of luxury. Number 1 is Siddhartha fulfilled the seer's prophecy by leaving the palace. Number 2 is Siddhartha gave up his life of luxury because of the 4 sights he witnessed. Finally, Siddhartha knew that he would not be able to solve the world's suffering by living a life of luxury. Welcome to part 2. To summarise our learning objective, we will be critically explaining the 4 Noble Truths through the life of the Buddha. This was his first teaching, and he elaborated on the different types of suffering, their causes, and how to end craving. In this portion of the video, I will provide an explanation to this concept, giving practical examples on how to answer a real-life 4-mark question, then expanding on this and how to answer a 5-mark question. I will be using the following example from an AQA paper in 2018. Explain 2 ways in which the 4 sites influenced Buddha's teachings. So, what are the 4 Noble Truths and how do they relate to this question? The 4 Noble Truths are the first and single most important teaching in Buddhism and can be deducted from the Buddha's life as Siddhartha Gautama, as their aim are to end all suffering, which is why Siddhartha left his life of luxury. The 4 Noble Truths therefore include the different types of suffering. The first one is dukkha, which means life is pain or suffering. The second one is samudaya, which is the origins of this pain or suffering. The third one is how to stop this pain. And finally, the fourth one is the Eightfold Path to Enlightenment. The question now remains, how does this relate to Buddha's life? There are 3 different types of suffering which we can find when Siddhartha Gautama left the palace. This can be found within the first 3 sites that he witnessed: an old man, a sick man and a dead man, as this highlights life's impermanence. Therefore, we already have 3 different types of suffering to use within the AQA paper. The second noble truth is samudaya, which is the causes of suffering. Buddha believed that upon discovering the middle way, suffering was more deeply rooted than one's own insecurity within themselves, which also relates to dukkha, as this is one's own personal suffering or dissatisfaction with themselves. It can be identified through the 3 poisons. The first poison is greed and is often represented as a rooster. The second one is ignorance, which is represented by a pig, and the third one is hatred, which is represented by a snake. Subsequently, these all lead to craving or urges, which stops an individual from achieving liberation, resulting in them being reborn, according to Buddha. The third noble truth discusses ending suffering through enlightenment. This means to liberate oneself from rebirth, leading to nirvana. Ultimately, Buddhists believe that there is no soul, therefore nirvana is attaining enlightenment through detaching oneself from worldly things. The final noble truth is magga, the prescription to solving suffering, which can be found through the Eightfold Path. The path consists of the right understanding, which could be accepting the 4 noble truths, the right intention, which means to have the right thought, the right speech, which could mean not to swear, the right action, which could mean helping someone, the right livelihood, which means to earn your money honestly, right effort, which could mean to strive to do right, the right mindfulness, which could be covered through meditation, as well as the right concentration, which can also be covered through meditation. I will relate this back to our task. So here is how to answer a 4-mark question from AQA's 2018 paper. The question was, explain 2 ways which the 4 sites influenced Buddha's teachings. There are various examples that we could use within the video. However, here are 2 examples which I have chosen which would fit the AQA mark scheme. By witnessing the holy man, this inspired Buddha to give up his life of luxury. Therefore, Buddha searched for the solution to dukkha. Additionally, we could also have the dead man reminded Buddha that everything is impermanent, leading Buddha to meditate with the 5 ascetics and resulting in the discovery of the middle way lifestyle. Notice on the video how I've made 2 distinct points and then developed them. That is all you need to do to achieve the full 4 marks. In order to achieve 5 marks, the question will look very similar to this. However, it will ask you to reference a relevant scripture or a teaching of a said religion. Therefore, if we were to take the same question, but it asks something like this, we could state that Buddha delivered his first sermon of the 4 noble truths, which is the teaching, to the 5 ascetics, and this would gain the extra mark. Additionally, I've provided a reference list of quotes below in the description for learners to look at in order to answer 5-mark questions. To conclude part 2, we have covered the 4 noble truths, the causes and types of suffering, the 3 poisons, and how to end craving. We have also applied this to a 4 and 5-mark GCSE question from AQA. Furthermore, we have also outlined segments of Learning Objective 3 as Buddhists achieve liberation through nirvana, and this can be done through the Eightfold Path, which we have also provided an explanation to. We'll now cover how to answer a 12-mark GCSE question. The following question was included with an AQA's 2020 paper. This involves evaluating a statement such as, the Eightfold Path is the most important of the Four Noble Truths. The key is to evaluate the statement with the prompts provided by AQA, such as to refer to Buddhist teachings, to give reasoned arguments supporting and opposing this statement, and finally to provide a conclusion. To break this down further, we can take points away from AQA's 2020 mark scheme. In order to achieve between 10 and 12 marks, students will firstly need to provide a well-argued response. This means that students should have more than one viewpoint included in their answer. This usually means having a supporting and opposing argument. The second key point to take away is that students must follow a logical chain of reasoning. This means that students should be specific and support their arguments with the relevant Buddhist teaching, for example, which relates back to the question. And the third key to this is students should also include a relevant quote. This is normally provided by their school, and this does not have to be quoted word for word. However, this must be included within the answer. The key to following this structure to answer these types of questions is to split your answers up into 3 paragraphs. This should include an argument which supports this statement and an argument which opposes this statement, as this will show logical structure and keep a well-balanced response. The final paragraph should be a justified conclusion. Note, this paragraph should only summarise the supporting and opposing arguments, but students should also state what argument they found to be stronger, or if they felt them to be equally as strong, and nothing new should be added to this other than that. Students should also note that 3 marks are awarded for spelling and grammar. Therefore, students should revise spellings of key words, as this could gain you extra marks and more importantly stop you from losing marks. We will now evaluate the following statement. Is the Eightfold Path the most important of the Four Noble Truths? We will evaluate this statement using the mark scheme and providing a practical example of how you can structure your answers within your GCSE exam. So here is a look on how to answer the supporting and opposing arguments within the GCSE paper. Both arguments follow the same structure, therefore we will write a supporting argument, and in order to write the second half, all you need to do is replicate what you did in the first half. The first step to this is explaining why someone would agree, or more importantly, why a Buddhist would agree with the statement. For example, we could say some Buddhists believe that Magga is the most important step of the Eightfold Path. This is because it is the cure to dukkha. This will give you 1 mark because you have simply provided a reason. Therefore, we will need to expand and develop this answer. For example, we could say, therefore, if Buddhists follow the Eightfold Path, they can achieve enlightenment through breaking the wheel of samsara, which could be their goal as Buddhists as they want to attain nirvana. We have now gained 2 extra marks by developing our original statement. Notice how we have given practical examples which relate to Buddhists. By saying, therefore they want to achieve enlightenment, breaking the wheel of samsara, and also relating this back to nirvana. Therefore, we are beginning to create a logical chain of reasoning, which we can then support with a reference. This can either be a direct quote or a paraphrase. For example, we could say, this is because Buddha said, the world is afflicted by death and decay, but the wise do not grieve, having realised the nature of suffering. By using this quote from earlier in the video, we can attain between 7 and 9 marks between our 2 paragraphs, as without references students will be capped to level 2 answers which are between 4 and 6 marks. Therefore, it is important to support your arguments with solid references about teaching or direct references to scripture, depending on the religion. The final step to writing a supporting and opposing argument is to evaluate what you have said. An example of this is a strong argument because Buddha left his life of luxury to escape suffering. Therefore, directly following the Eightfold Path offers Buddhists a chance to do the same, which is what makes this the most important of the Four Noble Truths. Notice how we've provided a relevant quote and then evaluated that quote with Buddha's life. This will give us 2 additional marks. Therefore, our aim with the supporting and opposing paragraphs are to score 5 marks per paragraph. Therefore, we only need to score 2 more marks in our conclusion. Before we get into our conclusion, I would like to state that there is a template of how to write supporting and opposing arguments on the screen, which you can use to draft an answer. My full answer will be featured at the end of this video, which you can evaluate by screenshotting and using the mark scheme in the description. Now, let's think about how to write a conclusion then. There are only 2 steps in this, and the first step is to summarise both arguments, and the only part which will be new is for you to evaluate which argument you thought was stronger, or if there was an equal strength, and then present a new reason on why you would think this. Now let's break down how to do this. Firstly, conclusion should begin with a starter, such as in conclusion to, or to conclude this, and then be followed by a summary of the 2 arguments. For example, in conclusion, I would like to state that some Buddhists believe that the Eightfold Path is the most important of the 4 Noble Truths, because it is the cure to dukkha. As we can see, we have pointed out a reason which we should then expand on. This is because escaping dukkha leads to enlightenment. This is our main argument, and then we need to counter this in order to provide a well-balanced response. We could then say, despite this, most Buddhists believe the 4 Noble Truths should be followed as a collective because Buddha preached his first sermon after he had escaped dukkha. Therefore, we could say, without realising how to escape dukkha, Buddha might not have realised the Eightfold Path. It shows that we are stating 2 clear points and 2 clear reasons of our arguments, which will secure us a mark. Now, the only new bit we will need to include is in which argument we felt was stronger. For example, we could say, personally, I feel this is the stronger argument because Buddha felt that one needed to end their craving through following the 4 Noble Steps before becoming enlightened through the Eightfold Path. This would secure us our final mark as we've stated something new by stating that Buddha wanted to end craving before reaching enlightenment. And notice how I've rounded off our argument by stating I felt this argument was stronger. And that's how to write a justified conclusion, which will end how to answer a 12-mark question. Thank you for watching this video, and the reading list will be followed shortly, as well as the answer to this 12-mark question. Thank you for watching, and good luck on your GCSEs.